Good morning, everybody. This is Matt Dreyer from VMware. We'll be beginning here just shortly.
Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about an introduction to VMware Cloud on AWS. So thank you for joining us on this webinar. My name is Samir Kadu. I'm a Partner Solutions Architect at AWS, focused on the partnership with VMware, thus VMware Cloud on AWS. And joined with me today is Matt Dreyer, Director of Product Management at VMware.
Good morning, everybody.
So today's agenda, we're going to go over what is VMware Cloud on AWS, an architectural overview and integration with AWS services, the benefits and use cases, consumption options and pricing, and then lastly, we'll conclude with a summary, followed by a Q&A. So today, customers want to have a hybrid cloud strategy. 83% of workloads are virtualized today. 60% of large enterprises run VMs in the public cloud, and 65% of the organizations have a hybrid cloud strategy today. Customers are seeking an integrated and hybrid approach. For some customers, the hybrid is the preferred operating model and way to go. So with an on-premises environment, you might want to use familiar tools and processes. For the most part, you leverage existing investments. You want to maintain unique hardware configurations, and you want to have granular control over the placement of applications and data. With the public cloud, you'll be able to scale faster, reduce your costs, establish a global footprint. You have the option to pay as you go, and you also have access to a broader range of services. So as customers move to the cloud, they're looking for ways to get the best of both worlds without buying any additional or new hardware. So there are several common challenges with a hybrid cloud adoption. For example, you might have to deal with multiple virtual machine formats. You might have incongruent networks. You might even have operational inconsistency between your on-premises environment and the cloud environment. You might have to train your team to learn new skill sets or even utilize new tools. And then you might even have multiple controls for monitoring your environments. So there now is a common approach to have a hybrid cloud environment. So with common infrastructure, you can combine that with your common operations across your cloud and your on-premises environment. So it allows for a consistent and simple way to operate your infrastructure and your VMs. You can have compatibility across your on-premises environment and the public cloud environment, and you're ready for VMs and containers as needed. So that's where VMware Cloud services with the VMware Cloud Foundation will come into play between your private cloud and the public cloud. So this is a truly compelling and differentiated solution. So with VMware, it's a leading compute storage and network virtualization platform out there that has a broad set of capabilities, support for a broad range of workloads, and then it's standard for the enterprise data center. With AWS, the flexible consumption economics comes into play. You have the broadest set of cloud services and the global scale and reach. So with VMware Cloud on AWS, it is comprised of VMware software plus AWS's infrastructure. So what that means is you're going to have the VMware stack on AWS infrastructure. So VMware's compute, storage, networking, and security is delivered as a cloud service. VMware capabilities in cloud infrastructure is sold as a combined VMware offering. A unit of purchase is physical hosts with VMware software. The minimum purchase is 4 hosts, and you can add additional hosts as needed in increments of 1, or if you need to add additional, you do have that option as well. So some of the key benefits with VMware Cloud on AWS is it allows a seamless hybrid infrastructure from private and public cloud market leaders. So you have the rich VMware SDDC delivered as a cloud service on AWS, the consistency and familiarity of VMware technologies, and the easy workload and portability of hybrid cloud capabilities that are provided, and direct access to the power of native AWS services. And then lastly, existing and new apps and containers and VMs can be utilized as well. So VMware SDDC technologies you know and trust delivered as a service on world's most popular public cloud. So the global reach is expanding over time. For example, VMware Cloud on AWS first launched in our Oregon region, then it launched in Northern Virginia, And then in March, we recently announced the launch in the London region. So as you can see, we're looking to expand the service throughout the world and in majority of our regions as soon as possible. So with VMware Cloud and AWS, there is support by third-party infrastructure partners. So in this slide, you can see the various partners from data protection with Direct Connect, security, TCO assessments, and even the DevOps. So this is growing and expanding on a daily basis. You'll see additional partners added to this, but this gives you a brief idea of some of the partners that we're working with today. So what is VMware Cloud on AWS? It's an on-demand VMware software-defined data center delivered as a cloud service. It's going to include the latest software. So that means the latest version of vCenter Server, ESXi, NSX, vSAN, and this is managed by VMware. You also gain the dynamic capacity. So DRS HA compute cluster from an Intel x86 platform, vSAN storage cluster with NVMe flash drives, NSX network virtualization through ENA. And again, this is built on top of AWS infrastructure. So when I say that, the compute is provided to you with bare metal instances. So it's comprised of our i3-16XL equivalent host. It's going to come with 36 cores or 72 vCPUs, 512 gigabytes of memory, and then NVMe all flash storage, and then the 25 gigabit ENA. So with the hypervisor, ESXi, you do have the option to start with a minimum of the required 4 hosts, and then you can expand out to 32 hosts as needed for your cluster. This is, again, maintained by VMware. There are limitations where you can't access SSH or root access to your host. Also, you can't deploy any VIBs or plugins in your vCenter server environment or onto your host. And from a storage standpoint, vSAN is utilized. So you can aggregate your instance storage. It does utilize all flash, so with the capacity and caching that comes in with it. There's no EBS or EFS options that can be mounted to your host. And then also you can utilize and configure storage policies for your VMs. From a network and security standpoint, it will utilize NSX, does have the option for logical networks. Then you can also set up north-south firewalling to protect your environment as well. You do have a compute and management gateway. IPsec termination can take place, and then also with NATing, you can control that as well with vSphere. So it is VMware managed. You can delegate permissions, and you can even enable hybrid linked mode if you want to have that single pane of glass view. So you have that software-defined data center, which is comprised of your vCenter server appliance, vSphere, NSX, vSAN, ESXi. And then also you get to combine that now with AWS services. For example, with Amazon EC2, Amazon S3, Amazon RDS, even Amazon Redshift. Or if you want to utilize an AWS Direct Connect, you can do that as well. And then even integrate with Amazon DynamoDB. This does utilize AWS's global infrastructure. So meaning that your VMs that reside in VMware Cloud on AWS can now fully utilize AWS services. If you were to have an on-premises data center that's utilizing a vSphere platform environment, you do have the option to utilize connectivity with your VMware Cloud on AWS, SDDC, and then also then leverage the AWS services that are available to you. So for example, you might have your vCenter server on premises, which can be then linked through hybrid link mode through your vCenter server that exists in VMware Cloud on AWS. And then if you want to have native AWS services being utilized with your VMs, you do fully have that option as well. So again, if you want your VMs to communicate with, for example, Amazon EC2, by all means, they can do that. If you want your VMs to access an S3 bucket, you do have the option to do that. And then maybe you have like a 3-tier app and you're breaking it down where you want the database tier to utilize Amazon RDS. You do have the options and they are available to you. So as far as getting started, you will be able to access VMware Cloud on AWS through the console. You're going to utilize your My VMware credentials. From there, you'll set up what's called as organizations. And then also you can control identity and access management. You'll deploy a new SDDC, so you do have to define an SDDC name. You do have to specify an AWS account. If you already have one, you can utilize the existing AWS account. Otherwise, a new AWS account will be created for you. Then you do have to specify the management network CIDR block. Also, one of the key things is to specify the number of hosts that you need in your environment. So there is a minimum of 4 hosts, but you do have the option to have up to 32 hosts. And then from a region standpoint, you do have to pick which AWS region you want to deploy your SDDC in. So for example, it could be in the Oregon region, Northern Virginia region, or even London. So as far as connecting to the AWS account, what happens is a CloudFormation template is run to automate this process. It's going to allow the automated process to link your accounts. It creates the IAM cross-account role with a managed policy that attaches to it. And this role is what VMware will use to make various API calls. This cross-account role has limited access to one's AWS account, and you can even check that out when you log into the AWS console. And that role is available for you to go through if you want to see the permissions that it has. And then even some API calls that it has permissions to are, for example, we can modify route tables, attach interfaces, etc. And then with VMware Cloud on AWS, it will then assume a role to resolve this cross-account connection. So when you access the VMware Cloud on AWS console through vmc.vmware.com, you have the option to add and remove ESXi hosts to your SDDC. You do have the option for console user and role management to configure that. And then if you want to configure your firewall rules, by all means, you can do that as well. You do have the option to utilize the EIPs in that configuration and set that up as needed. And then even establish VPN connectivity. If you do want to enable hybrid link mode between your on-premises environment and your VMware Cloud on AWS environment, by all means, you do have that option. And then you can set up your logical network configuration and then even manage your VMs. And then lastly, you can even set up virtual machine storage policies. So one of the key things to keep in mind with VMware Cloud on AWS, yes, it does utilize an AWS VPC, but then it does have a network overlay. So you're going to have the management network and then also another network for your customer workloads. So you're going to have the management gateway and the compute gateway. NSX is what's being utilized from a networking standpoint. So keep that in mind when you're utilizing VMware Cloud on AWS. So as far as customer AWS account connectivity, there are several ways to go about it, but one of the key things to keep in mind is with VMware Cloud on AWS, you do have that SDDC account that has its own VPC, and then also you do have the customer-owned AWS account. So one of the key things to keep in mind is with VMware, it assumes a cross-account role into the customer-owned account, and during the onboarding process, the customer selects a subnet DNIs that are created depending on the number of hosts, creates an elastic network interface. A route table is then updated, and this allows for any traffic between the customer's AWS account to communicate with the compute network for your VMs, and it will use a specific ENI. And then with the compute gateway, what happens is if one of the hosts where that compute gateway resides was to fail, it then is automatically moved over to a new host, and the route table is updated to point to the new ENI. So as far as having a hybrid connectivity, you do have several options. For example, if you're going from your customer on-premises data center to your customer in AWS account, you can set up an IPsec VPN. You can utilize Direct Connect. If you're going between your on-premises data centers and VMware Cloud SDDC, you have the option to leverage a Layer 2 VPN, an IPsec VPN, and Direct Connect. And then between the customer-owned AWS account and the VMware Cloud SDDC, that's where it will utilize the VPC ENIs for compute gateways. So with on-premises connectivity, you're going to have two gateways, the compute gateway and the management gateway. The compute gateway and the management gateway are where these networks behind the gateways are overlays for the networks that are not part of the VPC CIDR blocks. So for example, if you're using a private virtual interface, AWS propagates a VPC CIDR block to your on-premises environment and not the overlay networks. To then reach the compute or management logical networks, customers would have to use either a VPN connection or a public LIF with a VPN connection. With Direct Connect, you can utilize a private VIF. You can then reach the VM kernel network, which is utilized for things such as vMotion, and then even layer 2 VPN can be leveraged. So as far as having direct access to native AWS services, so through the utilization of ENIs, which are utilized with your hosts that are in your VMware Cloud and AWS environment, you can then leverage VPC endpoints. So for example, with Amazon S3, and then if you want to have your VMs access EC2 instances, by all means, you do have the option to do that. Again, it comes down to having the best of both worlds, where you can mix and match the services to best fit your needs. So another interesting option available to customers is a hybrid cloud extension. This is going to allow for bulk workload migrations to take place. So for example, if you're not at version 6.5 for your vCenter server appliance, you might think that you may not even have an option to migrate your VMs, but that's wrong. You can leverage Hybrid Cloud Extension, which will support on-premises vSphere versions 5.0 and above. It does allow for WAN optimization to take place as it's built in. It does allow for bi-directional migration to take place. You do have to have a minimum 100 megabits network in place to allow for the connectivity. It does support distributed switch and even the Cisco Nexus 1000B. And then it allows for Internet Direct Connect support for bulk migrations over vMotioning as well. And then lastly, it does even have that built-in scheduler. So if you're looking to just deploy a set amount of VMs at a particular time, and then you can want to schedule that out when you have a maintenance window, you do have that option available to you. All right, so next we'll have Matt discuss the use cases for a broad range of cloud strategies.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Dreyer. I'm a product manager here at VMware, and I'll be taking you through the rest of the presentation here this morning. So we've done a lot of work with our customers and with Amazon to really try to nail down the set of use cases that are interesting for VMware Cloud on AWS SDDCs. And what we found is that we've come to a pretty consistent set of use cases that resonate across the board. These use cases are data center extension, cloud migration, and development of next generation applications. What we found is that no matter where we go, we tend to find customers talking to us in one of these three events, or in some cases in all three. In data center extension, we really see a lot of customers that are looking to deliver cyclic capacity for their applications. All customers typically have some sort of a high season. Maybe it's selling sodas in the summertime or flowers around Valentine's Day, or the traditional peak shopping demands during the holiday season. This capacity being available on demand and provisioned by a click of a button really allows customers to sort of rethink their capacity planning model and to optimize the amount of infrastructure they deploy on-prem. We also see use cases for disaster recovery and backup. Again, here we typically see customers that are either geographically constrained or perhaps just don't have another worthy data center within a replication distance from their existing on-prem. By deploying an SDDC in VMware Cloud on AWS as a disaster recovery target, you very simply enable yourselves with a proper DR program, and being integrated with VMware Site Recovery Manager, we make it very simple to test evacuations and reinstantiate those applications in a cloud environment. This also allows us to do very interesting new use cases for development and test. We see a lot of customers using CI/CD pipelines, including Jenkins, to simply provision a new SDDC, run their testing jobs, and tear down the environment after the tests are all run. So again, providing very nice continuity across your data center and your hybrid cloud environment. The next set of use cases that we commonly see is around cloud migration. Here we'll commonly see customers that come to us asking for methods and techniques for evacuating their data center. So this can be anything from consolidating data centers due to mergers and acquisitions, or perhaps retiring and aging out old infrastructure that's reached end of life, or perhaps even just migrating an application to put it closer to your end users. We find this very common with international companies that say may doing term-based projects in a far-off geography where it just doesn't make sense to go procure and secure physical data center space. And finally, with next generation applications, we see development of brand new applications using containers and hybrid applications using the native infrastructure in Amazon combined with backend systems and existing systems deployed in VMware Cloud on AWS. Again, a really nice way to sort of rethink your application modernization strategy and address new use cases like IoT and perhaps mobile. And so we find that in talking with customers, we really do see a broad range of capability that we bring to the table and providing value across each one of these. Let's talk a little bit about the value that we can bring with VMware Cloud on AWS. Again, we have three pillars. We allow you to accelerate innovation, respond faster to change, and really optimize costs throughout your infrastructure. With innovation bent, you again have the flexibility to rethink applications in a whole new light. Perhaps you want to use something like functions as a service with Lambda, or maybe a massively scalable database like Redshift, along with your existing applications. By having this infrastructure co-deployed with these native cloud services, we make it very simple to really think about architecture in brand new ways. Instead of having to re-architect a whole application from the ground up, you can simply choose to modernize as you see fit. This also gives you new ways to think about capacity. Again, most applications deployed on-prem are designed on an annual basis and built for the peak, the load that they have to handle. What we see then is most infrastructure on-prem is only utilized about 10% in order to deal with those massive spikes. Here again, by optimizing and making sure that we have just enough capacity provisioned on demand, we can really start optimizing those spending models and move away from a CapEx model over to an OpEx model. And finally, being able to respond to change faster. Again, we see this very, very frequently with the globalization efforts where we need to have capacity in new regions practically overnight. Being able to spin that capacity up and not have to bring in a whole new set of tooling and operational models to operate the environment. So interoperability with your existing Power CLI scripts, with tooling like vRealize Automation and vRealize Operations, we can simply extend your existing data center footprint into a cloud model. And so a very compelling set of use cases here, delivering a very demonstrable business value. Let's talk a little bit about procurement. Again, VMware Cloud on AWS is an on-demand model. You simply come to cloud.vmware.com to get started. We have a simple form to fill out that will put you in contact with our sales folks. From there, the purchase process is very straightforward. We do billing based on consumption. Again, this is on demand. You can provision an SDDC at the click of a button or with an API call. We offer hourly pricing that you'll see here on the next slide, as well as deep discounts for reservations on either a 1 or a 3-year basis. We also have add-on services available for a hybrid cloud exchange, as well as for VMware site recovery, and a growing portfolio of those as well. So you really will find a full set of infrastructure available here that is all integrated together and all deployed on demand. In terms of paying for the offering, we have multiple ways to pay for this as well. We do have a credit card option, so you can simply edit your enter your credit card information and pay on demand. We also offer payment via VMware SPP and HPP credits. These can be purchased from VMware or a number of our resellers. And we'll also be supporting purchase orders very soon. And so no matter how you choose to transact, we have a method for you to come onto the platform. And finally, we're offering generous discounts to our existing customers. This is not a licensed trade-in program. It really is just a thank you for being a VMware customer. And so based on the inventory and the license count that you have already purchased from VMware, we're able to offer additional discounts for the service. Let's walk through the economics a little bit here, and I'll go ahead and build out this chart. One of the beautiful things about cloud is that it is perfectly competitive and perfectly transparent. And so we've done a lot of work with Amazon and with our own people to make sure that what we're bringing to market here is a very competitive and very differentiated solution. And so to do this, we've done a series of our own economic studies to really understand the behavior of how VMware customers are deploying VMware vSphere on-prem, and to really model that against a cloud operating model. And so what you'll see here in the chart are a series of two curves. We have the traditional curve shown in gray or black here that shows the average amount of spend per VM per hour using a typical on-prem deployment model. And you'll see in the mouse type at the bottom of the page that we're using fairly standard gear that you would find in your own data center. And what you can see here is that depending on the loading of your infrastructure, you'll achieve greater levels of TCO in that infrastructure. Indeed, what we've found is that over time, most VMware customers deploy somewhere between 1.1 and 1.2 VMs per core in their on-prem infrastructure. And so using this as a baseline and working closely with Amazon, we've come up with an economic model that is even more compelling to run your VMware infrastructure in VMware Cloud on AWS. You can see this across the entire curve. Even from very lightly loaded environments where you might be running heavily used application servers or perhaps database servers, we're still very compelling compared to an on-prem offer. And what you can see as you grow up into those higher loading levels, you can actually be very competitive with the cloud operating models, and indeed very much more compelling than what you're doing on-prem today. Aside from this, you also take out all of the overhead of doing things like procuring and managing servers. All you're left to do in this is to create virtual machines and run your applications. VMware handles all of the patching and upgrading of vCenter Server, vSAN, and NSX. And again, the underlying infrastructure. You can add hosts and add clusters literally at the click of a button. And so the economics here benefit from the competitive nature of the cloud, and you'll find that we've got a very compelling offer here against on-prem and indeed against other cloud offerings. To get into a bit more detail here, we have listed out the pricing. This pricing is also available on cloud.vmware.com, and you'll see here the standard list pricing. The offering is sold on a per host basis, and so when you provision your SDDC, you choose how many hosts you want to provision into that cluster, and those hosts are billed out at $8.37 an hour, or if you take the longhand, $8.36, 81 cents per hour. These charges are then aggregated back at the end of the month, and you'll receive a bill from VMware for the number of servers that you've used, with an additional incremental charge for IP addresses and network bandwidth. But what you can see here is that the initial charge, that $8.37 per hour, is very compelling. If you choose to go into a longer term relationship with VMware and purchase either a 1-year reserved instance or a 3-year reserved instance, we offer very, very healthy discounts. And so if you are looking at a large scale project, say a data center evacuation, and buy into a 3-year, you'll find the discount is actually in the range of 50% over the list price on demand. And so good amount of flexibility here, again, modeled after the Amazon reserved instance model available in Amazon native offerings in EC2. And again, you can see you can enjoy some very nice discounts in here. On top of that, we also offer a hybrid loyalty program. Again, this is sort of that thank you gift for being a VMware customer. And you can see the incremental discounts that you can achieve just by having existing vSphere, vSAN, and NSX licenses on-prem. You will note that the maximum discount is capped at 25%, but you can incrementally get there through discounts for your already purchased vSAN, NSX, and vSphere licenses. And again, these come off the top of that price shown on the previous page. Again, more detail on all of this at cloud.vmware.com. And again, we're happy to help you out if you're looking at larger deals, to be in touch directly with a salesperson, either from Amazon or from VMware. To wrap this up, we do have a number of great resources available. The offer is, again, on demand, so you can get in touch with a salesperson from either Amazon or VMware using the links shown here. From the VMware side, it is cloud.vmware.com/VMC-AWS. There's a nice big contact us button prominent on that page. On the Amazon side, there's a similar contact mechanism at aws.amazon.com/VMware. We also have a number of assets and videos that have been posted to the VMware Cloud blog at blog.cloud.vmware.com. Our YouTube channel, you'll also find a number of great replays of videos and demonstrations that have been done at both VMworld and the Amazon reInvent conference over the last couple of years. So there's a bunch of great content out there for you to continue to explore. And again, if you'd like to boot an SDDC today, we'd encourage you to get a hold of us, and we can get you started. In terms of TCO, we've got pricing calculators available for you to start measuring the amount of spend that you're doing on-prem and do the conversion and calculation to VMware Cloud on AWS. And again, a lot of material out there for you to consume. That's what we have for the content portion of today's presentation. Thank you for joining. We'll now open this up for Q&A. We'll handle as many of these questions as we can live, and we'll also try to handle a few of these offline. So go ahead and hammer your questions into the Q&A panel there, and we will get going on responding to them. I might try to take a few of those live on the phone if we can find some that have been commonly asked. So why don't I start up there and go through a few of these. One of the questions was around requirements for on-prem versions of VMware software to make this work. The answer for this is pretty simple. There are no requirements on-prem. The SDDC can be deployed as an island, if you will, completely disconnected from your on-prem environment. However, most of our customers enjoy a big amount of benefit by doing a connection back to their on-prem. So when operating in hybrid linked mode, the requirement on-prem is to have a vCenter server version 6.0U3 or higher. If a customer also has NSX, we can enjoy some nice connectivity options, and in the future, some nice policy stretching. vSAN is deployed by default in the VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC, but there's no requirement for a similar deployment on-prem. So again, you can think of this as disconnected from your environment or fully integrated using technologies like hybrid linked mode. And again, there's more information about this in demonstration videos posted to the website. There's another question here about which version numbers are deployed in the VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC. We are always running the tip of the spear software versions. So I believe the current release is 6.6, which is bug compatible with vSphere 6.7. We're also running NSX 6.4 and the equivalent version for vSAN with vCenter Server, which is also that 6.6. And again, straight compatible with vSphere 6.7, and with hybrid linked mode, backward compatible to 6.0U3. There's another question here on hybrid cloud extension and how it can be used to migrate between virtual machines between on-prem and your VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC. Hybrid Cloud Extension is a fantastic piece of technology from VMware that really helps you do both bulk migration of workloads. We've literally had customers use this to migrate up to 300 VMs in a single weekend. It's fantastic. It does network optimization and intelligent routing and a bunch of optimization and compression to really allow you to do those bulk moves. And so Hybrid Cloud Extension also allows you to go a bit further back into VMware history, and does indeed support vSphere versions back into the 5.x line. And again, there's information on our FAQ online for the exact version numbers, but customers running a bit older environments will enjoy that as an option as well. There's a question here around compliance. We are working hard on our compliance roadmap, and we'll be announcing certifications here shortly. And so stay tuned to the VMware Cloud and AWS roadmap page, again, available on cloud.vmware.com. And you'll see as we achieve these certifications, we'll be updating that roadmap page to indicate that we have achieved them.
Hey, Matt. So I think one of the key things a lot of questions seem to be related to is also DR related options. So maybe we can discuss about a site recovery offering for VMware Cloud on AWS just to help answer any questions around that.
Fantastic. So another great integration that we've done is with VMware Site Recovery. For VMware customers on the phone, this is an evolution of VMware Site Recovery Manager. There is a new version of VMware Site Recovery Manager that we use to provision this service. It is the version 8.0 and now the new 8.1 releases. What we've done with this is actually really cool. It's a click to deploy option where once you have your SDDC up and running, you simply click to enable the VMware Site Recovery add-on. This will automatically provision the additional infrastructure you need into your SDDC to load SRM. So we deploy the Site Recovery Manager virtual machines, and then give you a link to download the on-prem virtual appliance that you deploy in your on-prem environment. From there, if you've seen VMware Site Recovery version 8, we've done a very good job of simplifying the build outs of the recovery plans. And so you can simply go and select a bunch of VMs in your on-prem inventory, say create recovery plan, and they will instantly start being replicated to your VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC. And should a disaster happen, the failover will just happen and work. And so again, think of in terms of two use cases here: VMware Hybrid Cloud Extension for bulk migration, and VMware Site Recovery for disaster recovery. And again, both very tightly integrated and automated in the service.
So I think another key point is also with hol.vmware.com. So access to the hands-on labs. So a lot of customers or potential customers through the Q&A process have been asking about how they can play around and kick the tires with this. So you do have the option to access VMware's hands-on labs, which are great at showcasing how to deploy an SDDC, how you can utilize it. And then if you are interested in it, by all means, there is an option to have a pilot and even a POC.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We're very happy to launch that hands-on lab at VMworld last year, and I think it was the #2 or #3 lab worldwide. So very popular and a lot of excitement around the VMware Cloud and AWS hands-on lab. And we're also in the process of revving that for this year, and so we hope to have even more good stuff showing up there shortly.
So I think another question seems to be the availability of Horizon on VMware Cloud on AWS. So I guess since we did announce this being under tech preview, we did make the announcement in early March, I think March 7th it was. So maybe this is a good time to also state how our roadmap is available to customers. If they just go to VMware's website, they do have full access to that roadmap.
And for Horizon 7, the solution does work today. We're working on a brand new deployment guide that should be published here any day now. But if you simply download the Horizon 7 management appliance and deploy it in your SDDC, our tech support folks will be able to work with you on chat to bring that up and running. And again, the deployment guide is coming here within the next couple of weeks.
So one of the questions was if we have a checklist or types of activities that need to be completed for the hybrid cloud setup. So I think one of the key things to help potential customers learn and understand is there are a multitude of materials that are available to potential users. So for example, reference materials, documents that are all published online. And then also when you do utilize the service, we as in VMware and AWS do work as a team to make sure you are properly onboarded. We will help you get through that process. And then if you have any questions, there is ways to reach out to us directly as well. So we are there for you.
One of my favorite documents is the VMware Cloud on AWS Getting Started Guide. This is a Googleable document. If you just throw VMware Cloud on AWS Getting Started Guide into your search bar, one of the top returns will be a PDF guide that literally goes through the whole setup from creating your account all the way to doing connectivity into S3 buckets. So a very comprehensive guide that really walks you through everything you need to get started on the service. And again, support is handled in product through chat. Our customers have been very excited to use chat to resolve small problems. You'll also find KB articles and other help topics delivered right in the console.
So another key point that came up was the ability to extend your layer 2 network. So I think that's a great question because with VMware Cloud on AWS, and if you do set up a hybrid linked mode between your on-premises environment and VMware Cloud on AWS, and then depending on your network connectivity between the hybrid connection, you do have the option to extend your layer 2 network. So for example, you could vMotion a VM between your on-premises environment to VMware Cloud on AWS without even having to change the IP address of a VM. And then Matt, I think maybe it's a good time to also discuss about some of the options as far as a vRealize suite that is compatible with VMware Cloud on AWS, for example, with VROPS and VRA, how you can utilize that in conjunction with VMware Cloud on AWS.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really makes the service compelling is that at the end of the day, your operating experience is just vCenter Server. So all of your operators and technicians that are familiar with vCenter Server can simply go in and log into the web client and do what they need to do, create VMs, do snapshots, backups, and what have you. So what this also means is that from that vCenter Server point of view, it looks like just another vCenter Server endpoint. So if you are using cloud automation platforms, like vRealize Automation or operational dashboards like vRealize Operations, you simply add the vCenter server deployed in your VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC into that inventory, and it will be picked up, discovered, and manageable from that environment. This also goes for third-party applications and tools. I've seen a couple of questions in there. We do have a new certification program for third-party systems to bring their backup and security and other solutions into the fold. And so we've got a number of customers and partners that have already completed this process. And so tools that you know and love from Veeam, from Dell EMC, Net Backup, and several others have been tested and are actually deployed in production today with a number of our customers. The full list of supported solutions can also be found at the website cloud.vmware.com. And if you don't see your favorite vendor in there, go ahead and ping us and we'll make sure they get added to the list. There's another question here around using the vSphere client on-prem. Can we connect that to the vCenter server hosted on VMware Cloud on AWS? That connection model is called hybrid linked mode. The way that we view inventory today is by logging into the vSphere web client deployed in the SDDC. From there, hybrid linked mode will allow you to manage the inventory both in the cloud SDDC as well as on-prem. In our roadmap, we're also working on doing the reverse of that, where you can log into your local on-prem web client and manage the inventory in the SDDC. But right now, the point of hybrid management is on that cloud vCenter server. And the reason for that is in most environments, the version of the vCenter server running in SDDC is probably a little bit ahead of what you've got on-prem. So operationally, it just makes a little more work makes it more convenient to be running in sort of a backward compatible mode.
I think that's a good way to, sorry about that. I was going to say it's a good way to hit upon the 90-day update cycle with VMware Cloud on AWS, as a lot of customers may not be familiar with that process, just to take that into account, because a lot of the updates that are being made to the VMware stack are being pushed out first to VMware Cloud on AWS. So that might be something as well, just to keep in mind. But as you mentioned, it is backwards compatible as well.
There's another really intriguing question here in the chat around how is this different from running VMs directly on AWS? And there's a very distinct difference here because the hypervisor that we're using here is VMware vSphere. So what you'll find typically when you move a virtual machine to the cloud, it typically means refactoring that virtual machine for another hypervisor. So if you're to take a virtual machine running in your data center today on VMware vSphere and to move it to some other cloud, typically you'll have to go through some sort of conversion process to move it to a different virtual machine format. That is way more tricky than it sounds. In a lot of these cases, you'll find little things break and things don't quite work as well as you thought. And so by having the same hypervisor running both on-prem as well as in VMware Cloud on AWS, there's no conversion. You simply, in your inventory, right-click the virtual machine that you want to move and do a migrate operation, which is standard vMotion, and we'll vMotion that VM just as if you were to vMotion it between two VMs in your on-prem environment. Again, no conversion. It makes it very simple for you to bring VMs to VMware Cloud on AWS, and if need be, you can bring them right back to your on-prem environment, again, with the zero conversion of those virtual machines. I'll talk a little bit about the upgrades. And so because this is a managed service, VMware performs the upgrades of the SDDC stack. So on a monthly basis, we'll apply patches and updates to the entire environment, being vCenter Server, the hosts running ESXi, vSAN, and NSX. And so there will be a patching window that customers will ultimately be able to select where we will go through and update your environment in a non-disruptive way. This is typically done by adding additional hosts into the SDDC and doing a very normalized sort of patch and update process. These have been going very well. Customers very much like the idea that they no longer have to manage patching and updating of their infrastructure. And this is, again, one of the value adds of the service.
So I think another good question that came up was the support for load balancers. So I think one of the key things to keep in mind is, if you do have the ability to utilize different load balancing options, for example, if you want to utilize an elastic load balancer and your native AWS side, you do have the option to utilize that. So you can, again, mix and match your services as needed. Even with like a 3-tier app, you do have the freedom to utilize EC2 instances that can communicate with your VMs in VMware Cloud on AWS. If you want to split up your database and have it utilize RDS, you do have that option as well. So again, it's all coming back to the best of both worlds and what best fits your needs.
And there are a number of great video assets out on YouTube that you can watch on this as well. In particular, there's a session from Amazon reInvent 2017 called Intriguing Integrations between VMware Cloud on AWS and Amazon. And in that, there are a number of demonstrations showing part of an application running in the VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC and the other part of the application running Amazon native. So if you're looking for ideas and how to rethink stuff, highly encourage you watch the replay of that video. Because it'll get you started. There's also a number of demonstrations that have been posted right in product. So for those of you that do come on board, we've actually got a bunch of both Python and PowerSerialized sample code to implement a bunch of the things that are shown out in the YouTube videos.
And then one of the other things, just to reiterate, as far as upgrades, this is handled by VMware just because overall it's a managed service at the end of the day, where they handle the upgrades, even the infrastructure is a network related issue or hardware related issue. By all means, we, as an AWS and VMware, do monitor that. So we do proactively assist with that as far as if there's a host-based issue, we do pull that host out, provide another host as well, so you're not going to see that downtime due to that removed host. So one of the key things just to keep in mind is even the upgrades, they're handled by VMware for this. So you don't have to go through the whole process of planning an upgrade, taking an outage, and then going through that whole process. We're trying to simplify this process for you. And then also there's no hypervisor conversion. So this is on ESXi, it is bare metal. It's on hosts that are fully dedicated to you as a customer. It's not shared with anyone else. And then again, just to reiterate the point that Matt made about support, you do have the option to utilize the chat support that's available to you. It is a live person. It's not a chatbot on the other end like that. So if you do want to do that, you can utilize the chat option, or you can even directly reach out to VMware. So you do have that single point of contact for support. You don't have to juggle between reaching out to AWS support and VMware support and then having to balance that. We're trying to simplify that process for you. So that's why there's a single point of contact.
Excellent. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you, everybody, for attending this morning. We'll go ahead and close down the webinar. Again, thank you so much for your attendance. Watch for a video replay of the recording from this morning, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.